What's up, y'all? It's your girl Amanda, and we are back with another episode of Mandy's Entertainment Review. So this episode we are doing the Amy Winehouse documentary. It is simply titled Amy. So this documentary it came out like 11 years ago, but I actually found it on Fandango at home, and that app is like Amazon Prime Video, I guess, where you can like find movies, you can rent them, you can find TV episodes, you can buy them for like $2.99 a piece. So it is a little older, but luckily I did find it for free on Fandango at home. This is a one-part documentary, and it was about almost 2 hours watching that. And my thoughts on this documentary is that I I actually took the time to sit through this whole documentary and learn way more about Amy Winehouse. I like Amy Winehouse's music. She died when I was like 16, so probably back in like 2011. And again, y'all, it's just mind blowing how far, technology has come. I remember her being photographed a lot when I was in high school, seeing her in like the press and stuff, seeing her with her estranged husband, seeing her, out of it, inebriated and stuff. And I remember where I was when I found out that Amy Winehouse passed away. I was visiting my aunt and my cousin. They lived in Appleton, Wisconsin. And I went and had lunch with my cousin, and we came back to her apartment and we were just watching some random TV, probably the Kardashians or something. And this was back in the day when E had E News. And when you watch like a normal show on E News, right? And they have like the bottom bar, like you know how ESPN has like the baseline scoreboard or whatever. So E News had their own baseline news flash, and newsflash came on. Amy Winehouse found dead at 27, and there was video of her being uh, wrapped up in a body bag being carried out of her house, and I remember seeing that stuff on TV. So but yeah, I didn't know much about Amy Winehouse's life. I just knew about her music. So this was, a great, uh, reminder of how talented she was. And if, you were a big Amy Winehouse fan, this would remind you of like how much she meant to you as a singer. So as you guys know, I do my reviews in KWL. So what did I know about Amy Winehouse? I knew that she was a famous singer from the 2000s. So probably like 2008, 9-ish is when like that was her rise to fame. She is from London. She's a Brit because I would hear her talk sometimes. She's British. She's known for her beehive hairdo, her very tall hair, which I always thought like, man, how does she do that? Like, did she like put a comb to it? Did she like fine it a lot? I don't know. How did she do that? Her songs, I know I like that are played a lot in my car is Rehab. They try to make me go to rehab. I said no, no. That song and I Ain't No Good because I like that song for the drums. The drums are just like powerful in that song. Amy was married. She was married to Blake Civil Felder. I didn't know much about him until I watched the documentary. I thought he was just like a regular Joe Schmo married to this big time celebrity for years. I always thought that. I remember her reaction when she won a Grammy. She was actually performing. She was standing in front of a mic and everything. And when they announced that she won the Grammy, her face just was like, "Oh my God, are you serious? Like, oh my God, oh my God!" Like her face just said, "Oh my," just expressed, "Oh my God," and it it's just something that I never forgot. That's all. Her eyelash wing mascara is legendary. I didn't really see nobody wear mascara like that until Amy Winehouse, and then it was still a style when I was in high school. Um, not in the public school I went to, but I went to an all girls Catholic school in my junior year, and they were doing it too. So, of course, in memory of Amy, I yeah, I told the story where I was when Amy died, and also Amy Winehouse is in the 27 Club. If you guys don't know what the 27 Club is, it's when a lot of famous entertainers are passed away. I know Janis Joplin was in it. Kurt Cobain was in it. Jimi Hendrix, I think, is in it. 27 Club. Let's see. Jimi Hendrix, Jim Morrison, and Amy Winehouse. Let me see who else is in here. Is in here like rappers or something? Music. Did Mac Miller? I want to say Mac. Oh, Mac Miller. He didn't join. He was about to turn 26. But you know, y'all get it. But yeah, she's in the 27 Club along with those famous entertainers. Super talented entertainers as well. What did I want to learn? More about her family life growing up in London with her parents. Did she go to an arts high school? Because somebody so talented like that with instruments and that voice, did she go to arts high school? What were her teenage years like in London? What was the story behind rehab? How did she meet her husband? Because again, he always looked like a Joe Schmo to me and married to this famous person. What was the cause of her addiction? Did she ever consider living in the USA with her success? And did she want to do anything else besides singing? Did she want to be a businesswoman? Did she want to act? Did she want to work at McDonald's? Like, what did she want to do anything else besides sing? To one, expand her portfolio, supplement her income, and two, just to have a fallback on because in music, especially these past 10 to 15 years, it's always not been, supplemental. Like sometimes there could be stalls, sometimes there can be brain freezes. Was did she suffer from that and did she decide to take, you know, second steps to do anything else? As you guys know, I always say what I learned may or may not answer my questions, and that's okay. It's something I learned. One, she was a wonderful singer even as a teenager. Um, I have a theory that, like teenage boys, their voices change. Teenage girls' voices can change. I used to sing when I was a kid, I was in a choir and stuff. And then, yeah, my voice kind of changed. So I stopped singing. But for Amy, she was very lucky. Her voice grew along with her. She can play electric guitar. Now that I did not know. I always saw her singing and stuff. Never saw her with an instrument. The very little performances and stuff I saw her do on stage. Never saw her with an instrument. So I didn't know she could play an electric guitar. She used to write poetry and she wanted to rap. I 50% of me think that she would have been good as a rapper, and 50% of me think that she should have stayed with singing. Of course, stayed with singing because of the hits she had, but her style, her style would have gone great with a rap career. She probably would have dressed it up a little bit. Like sometimes you saw her dressed up, sometimes you saw her in like normal street clothes, which were, you know, a great style still. But I think she would have pulled it off if she was a rapper. She couldn't write music unless it was personal. Rappers take note. If Amy Winehouse did become a rapper, I wouldn't see Winehouse rapping about big screen TVs, $1 million houses, Bentleys and Bugattis, big booty women. I couldn't see her rapping about that. I would definitely, hear her rap about, her traumas and, her mental and all that stuff. But even in her singing music, that's what she said. She couldn't write it unless it was personal. She didn't want to lie. And a lot of these singers, what do they do in their music? They lie. So I'm very proud of her for that, to keep it real. She had an older boyfriend named Chris Taylor. They did talk about him in the documentary. And she also said that, she lost interest in him one day. And I'm like, ouch, that's gotta suck. That really gotta suck. Um, she was Jewish. I didn't know she was Jewish. I just always thought she was like some sort of white. I didn't know it was Jewish. She used fake horns. Wait, she hated fake horns. She used real instruments and francs. So we can definitely call her a musician because real musicians use actual instruments in their music. Her mother let her get away with a lot, which I think is a part of the reason why she was in a lot of trouble. Like, she didn't have like a strict mom to like really rule with an iron fist, if you will. She had a physically present but mentally absent dad. A lot of us kind of know what that feels like, and it really sucks. And her parents, they actually split when she was 9, and then that's when like the wild behavior kicked in, and her mom letting her get away with stuff. She was put on antidepressants as a teen, and she was friends with Mos Def. I thought that was fascinating. I like Mos Def. He's very multi-talented himself. So here's one of the questions that was answered. Blake Fielder was actually a party promoter where he met Amy, and they met at a pub, which in American slang, it's a bar. A pub is a bar for them over there. And they became very codependent. Yeah, that was sense in trouble. Like, for me, like, independence is a very big thing for me in a relationship. I don't like nobody texting and calling a million times. What are you doing? When you coming home? I can't stand that stuff. And normally, like, I guess women become like the clinky ones in a relationship. They want to be all up under their man. Well, I do want to be like that for probably an hour, but then, I'm ready to go do something else on my time. But for them, they were just always, together and on each other. She had a silly personality. They showed a video of her doing like a room tour, like a hotel room tour, and she was just being silly and doing like funny accents and stuff. I didn't know that watching Amy Winehouse on TV. I always thought she was like, serious and quiet and stuff, but she was very silly. Her friends cleaned her house when she wasn't mentally well to do so, and God bless those friends she had because real friends do come in when you can't do for yourself. And yeah, they cleaned her house when she couldn't. Her father didn't think she needed rehab, and that I was sick to my stomach finding out. I think honestly her father was after her money as well, because if someone needed rehab is not only for them to get off drugs, but it's also for them to clear their minds and stuff. But I guess like her dad wanted her to keep working and stuff, and I was just like, no, 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 that girl needed some help and a break. And if she didn't go to rehab, she was going to be dropped from the label. And she worked with Mark Ronson as well. Mark Ronson, I didn't know she worked with Mark Ronson. She has a topless woman tattoo on her arm. I just always thought it was like a scroll or something because the pictures of Amy Winehouse I would see on the internet were not the best quality. But watching it now on a 4K TV, it's clearly a tattoo, a topless woman tattoo. Another thing I didn't know is that she did MTV Unplugged. I didn't know MTV Unplugged was still a thing in the 2000s. I saw like, Christopher Williams did it, Mariah Carey did it. I always thought that they stopped at Jay-Z in like 1999, 2000, and I always thought that was the last one I ever saw. But no, she did on MTV Unplugged. She started using cocaine and heroin after she got married, so it was technically Blake's fault. And then there was like, Blake was doing interviews and there was articles and stuff of him saying, "Oh, well, I'm not responsible. I'm not responsible for." Well, if she started using cocaine and heroin after y'all got married, you have to be somewhat responsible for that. That's just my opinion. Blake the was around for the money, and they went to rehab with each other. I believe it. So he can keep an eye on the money. Just selfish. But she still did drugs after rehab, and her house was raided because of Blake, and she spiraled because of that. I'm just like, that was a whole. If she knew like what Blake was doing and stuff, and he was in trouble, she should have left him. I'm not victim blaming. Please don't do that. But if she was me, I would have left. She was making 1 million a show, so she was super rich. We hear about these drug addict celebrities and stuff, how they're going broke and stuff, but Amy was making a mill a show, and to get better, Amy went to St. Lucia with her dad, but Mitchell Winehouse had cameras in St. Lucia. And Amy hated it. I guess Amy wanted to be like really shut off from the world and not be quote unquote famous, but Mitchell had the cameras there with them, and Amy was hanging out with this guy, and there was like footage of it, like pictures of it and stuff. I guess they were hugging or whatever, and Blake saw it, and that's when he filed for divorce. I always thought that Amy left Blake, but it was Blake that filed for divorce. And then they showed images, footage of her recording with the late great Tony Bennett. Tony Bennett actually passed away like a couple years ago, but he was recording with Amy Winehouse, and there it showed professionalism. Amy, she seemed like shy, and she wanted everything to be perfect. And what I liked was that even though Amy was like acting all shy and just getting irritated over small things, because of course she was a perfectionist. Tony Bennett, a big singer, big star like Tony Bennett, he was like super patient and super nice to her, and I thought that was really sweet. Um, she had heart irregularities because of her drinking, and one of her final concerts, she was drunk and the crowd was booing her, and it just made me like really sad seeing that. Her bodyguard was the one who found her dead in her flat. And again, y'all, that's where all the footage of her being carried out by the coroners and stuff and the paparazzi, that's where it came from. She had a blood alcohol level of 4 to 5 times higher than the driving limit, so she had a lot of alcohol in her. And also another thing, I never saw. I always saw her be carried out of her house. I never saw her funeral footage, which was at a synagogue, I believe that's what they call. So yeah, it wasn't a lot that I learned about Amy Winehouse, but it was a great amount. I do give this documentary a 4 and 5 stars. What I liked seeing was, the Most Hidef cameo. Also, a cameo from Bobby Womack. Bobby actually passed away. Amy died in like 11. Bobby passed away in 2014. Um, I like that there was behind the scenes of the first tour, and it wasn't like fancy footage keeping, footage taking, camera work, and all that stuff. It was like, their personal camera doing the behind the scenes. Home movie format, I should say. A lot of home movies, a lot of interviews from her friends and family telling what happened during that time where she wasn't famous. She was just Amy. Um, I love the recording session with Tony Bennett where, he was patient with her. I always liked her sense of style because back in like the late 2000s, when I was like a freshman in high school, it was just a lot of color, a lot of mix match, high heels, Louboutins, just Amy. If Amy at Winehouse wore an outfit, I guess it would represent that time of fashion, if you will. In her flat, Amy Winehouse was making 1 million a show, but her flat looked so normal. There was CDs and stuff everywhere, which just warmed my heart because when I see rich people's houses, it's stuffy and it looked like a museum and you can't touch nothing and don't sit on that couch. But seeing Amy's flat just it just, made me feel comfortable. If I were to be there in person, I would just be like super comfortable just being there hanging out. What did I didn't like? We didn't see the faces of the people interviewed. We just heard their voices. I wanted to see what they look like then, like in 2015. Like, did they age? Do they still look the same? Did they cry? I just wanted to see their emotions. Honestly, this should have been a mini series. It was a little long. It did take me like a day or so to finish. So it probably should have been split up into like three, maybe four. I would say 3 episodes. In the beginning, you have Amy's childhood. Her parents splitting, her life in high school, her being on antidepressants, all that stuff. That should have been one episode. And then, okay, the up and up, stardom, her first album, her second album, and then the last one, obviously, when her career was starting to get out of control and her passing and all that stuff. Another thing I didn't like is that her parents really didn't have any spine. They didn't put their foot down, and that's why, Amy kind of got away with everything. The paparazzi at her house, that's like I think the worst part about being famous is like people always at your house, always wanting to like jump the gates and stuff. Because remember, when Kim Kardashian bought her first house and Keeping Up with the Kardashians, she even put on the internet, people are at my gate, people are hopping the gate, all that stuff. And it's a safety issue. And I just hate that how, you have to put your life out there because you're famous, but you get no privacy. It's like the worst thing ever. And lastly, we will never know what her career would have been like in 2026. Like, it probably would have been huge. It probably would have been huge, like Tony Bennett's, and maybe her and Lady Gaga would have came together to record like a Tony Bennett tribute album or something. But because she's no longer here, we will never know. But that is it for the Amy Winehouse documentary. I think it's on another streaming site. I think it's on Pluto TV or Tubi. I don't remember, but it is still on Fandango at home. So you can check it out on there. And thank y'all for listening. Peace.